Hello friends, this is Durga from ITversity. As part of this video, I'll be focusing on how we can actually develop Spark applications using Scala. The CCA certification says that you should be able to develop Spark applications in both Scala and Python. So I will be covering a lot of content in both the languages, and as part of this video, I will show you how to develop a simple word count program using Scala in Spark. So let us go ahead and see the uh, code and then start the programming directly. So I will be saving this file in my GitHub account. My GitHub account is accessible by typing www.github.com/dgadraju, which is my name, and then there's a repository called code, and in that there is Hadoop, EDW, Cloudera, Spark. In this you will find two files, one is for Scala and one is for Spark. PySpark means Python using Spark, or Python on top of Spark. So you can get this one, the code which I'm showing here as part of this file, and then to develop a simple word count program, you can first you need to define a variable. So this is how you can define a variable. You have to either use val or var in the Spark Scala context, and then you have to give the variable name, and then you can issue the necessary command or code snippet which will be executed and will be assigned to that. Before getting into it, Scala uses lazy evaluation, so it will only execute the script when it finds a particular word when you try to type in the command line, and those words are called as actions. They are nothing but functions. So any function call which is categorized as action will actually invoke the program. So before getting into and executing the program, let's see how you can access the documentation, which documentation you should focus on for the certification, etc. So if you go to the certification syllabus and go scroll down, as part of the certification they will be providing a CDH5 cluster with 5.3.2 version, and it have Spark 1.2.0 on that. Hence they provide Spark 1.2.1 documentation. 1.2.1 and 1.2.0, it's a minor upgrade and there are no changes in the syntax and semantics, so you can safely use this link to go to the Spark documentation, and they provide access to these links as part of the certification also, and they will not let you access Google or anything. So if you have any questions, you have to open only these links, and then you can search for the necessary syntax for your reference. In this, if you scroll down under where to go from here, and there is a Spark programming guide, you can click on it, and by default it will render the Scala material. If you want to change it to Python, you can click on Python and everything will be refreshed, and if you want to go back to Scala, you can click on Scala and everything will be under Scala. So this is how you can actually start using the documentation, and then you can actually start issuing these commands. I will start in a moment, and this program is just a word count program. Before getting into that, let me explain what are various functions that are relevant as part of Spark, and then we will start executing the program. So if you if you go to this to this page and search for transformations, you can see there is a section for transformations in this page, and here it shows all the valid transformations for Spark, and also if you scroll down further, there are actions. So transformations are the ones which you will use to transform the data. It could be parsing the data and cleansing the data, filtering the data. All those things are considered as transformations. And also there are aggregation based transformations. And then as part of the second category, which are considered as actions, as I have explained earlier, until you invoke an action, the Spark or Scala interpreter will actually build the compiled code, and once you issue action, it will execute the program. So in this, the transformations such as map, flatMap, filter are typically used to either parse the data or to filter the data, and then transformations such as group by key, reduce by key, aggregate by key used to aggregate the data. Similarly, in case of actions, you can issue count command or collect command to collect the record from the collections which are created when we try to run the program. Let us start executing the this script. For that, you have to launch the Spark shell. I am exiting, and I will show you how to launch the Spark shell also. So as part of certification, you need to use, means at the time of certification exam, they will give you access to 1.2.1. But the Cloudera VM which we are using uses Spark with 1.3.0. For that reason, you have to use the older version. You have to download and install the older version, and you have to make necessary configuration changes. And if you want to do that, you can go to my playlist for the Hadoop certification, CCA, and in this, before starting the Spark, I have emphasized how to set up 1.2.1 on this on the same VM. Instead of creating another another cluster or something, you can use the same VM, but you need to download, install, and then make necessary configuration changes. Everything is covered in this video. And to launch the exact version, you need to give the path to the 1.2.1 version, a Spark shell bin, and then you can issue Spark shell, which will launch 1.2.1 version of Spark. And then if you want to launch it in local mode, you can do -- master local, or if you do not, by default it will use yarn. So you can use either of them, and in this case I will be using local because it will launch faster compared to yarn, and hit enter. Now it will launch the Scala based Spark command line interface against 1.2.1, as you see here, and then you can start executing your Scala programs. This is not a Scala course, hence I will not be getting into too many details about Scala, but wherever it is necessary, I will emphasize certain things that are relevant to Scala. For example, in this case, we are using val. So there are two ways to define the variables, val or var. Val stands for immutable variable. So once you define it as val, you cannot reassign the value. It is immutable. You can redefine it, but you cannot assign a separate value. For example, if I say val I equal to 0, specifying the data type is optional. In this case, as 0 is integer, it can infer that it's of integer type, and that's when it implicitly considers it as integer data type, and it has printed the value. Now if I want to change the value like this, it will not let me do this, because it is of type val, which means immutable variable. But if you can definitely do val I equal to 1, now it will create a new variable with the same name, and it will be reassigned with 1. But if you want to reassign in the process, without redefining it, then you can use var. Var is a mutable variable, and you can say I equal to 1 now, and it will change it without any issues. In most of the scenarios, we will use val only. In this case, we will not be using var that much. Some cases we might have to. We will defer to that point when we use it. And then SC is Spark context. By default, when we launch, it will launch with a variable called SC, which is of type Spark context. If you want to explicitly do create it, first you need to import it. The import will be automatic. The Spark context will be automatically imported. It is under the package called org.apache.spark, and the class name is Spark context. And if you want to autofill, you can just hit tab after typing a little bit. For example, now if I type C and hit a tab, it automatically filled ON, but there is a conflict between F and TXT here, so it is asking you to enter either of them. In this case, I want the Spark context to be imported, so I can do this. And if you want to import the complete package, you just have to do dot underscore, which is similar to dot star in Java. Once you import that, you have to create the variable like this, SC. We have to say val SC equal to new Spark context. It is similar to our, so this syntax is similar to Java, and hit enter. So we are creating a Spark context. Here it is failing because Spark context is already available. You cannot change it. That's why it is failing. If you launch Scala and if you want to get into Spark context, and then you can use it. Or while running the program, while running the applications as a Scala program, using the command called Spark submit, which will be covered in a separate video, you have to define all these things. But here you don't need to. It's already available. That being said, if you want to get into other contexts, you can use you can import the other contexts, and you can run other type of programs also. For example, if you can actually import Hive context and issue Hive queries in this, which we will see in some other video. Now, once you import the necessary import statements, and you can import as and when it is necessary. You don't need to first import everything and then start your program. Anyway, now you can actually create this variable called val data equal to SC. So Spark context has a function called text file. It can be used to read the data, and by default it will read from HDFS if HDFS and Spark are integrated. If they are not integrated, it will use local file system. In this case, as they are integrated, it will read from HDFS. So first you need to make sure that you have the file and the directory in HDFS. That you can actually check by running Hadoop ss -ls user cloudera scoop import departments, and hit enter. There is a directory here, so we will be using that directory, departments. And you don't need to specify the files unless it is required to. In this case, I want to read all the files in that directory. And now it will create an RDD, which stands for Resilient Distributed Dataset. I have covered in a separate video on that, which means that whatever is in the file will be loaded into memory in the form of distributed collection. So as the name suggests, resilient means even if the one of the collection is unavailable, it can be rendered on some other node, and that's why it is called resilient, which means fault tolerant. Distributed dataset means whatever is available in the file, if the data is huge, instead of loading the entire data in one of the nodes in memory, it will actually distribute the data into mutually exclusive chunks, and those chunks will be distributed on the cluster. That's why it is called a distributed dataset. and it is resilient because if one of the node goes down, the missing chunks will be created on some other node in memory. It's very important to understand RDD, resilient distributed data set, and that is the foundation for Spark. Data will be loaded into memory before being processed. So in this case, when you do this, it will create a variable to hold this collection from this file. But as I have mentioned to you earlier, it will not execute the program immediately. It will execute the program only when it actually encounters the actions. So once you create the RDD, now you can do several things. Now if you want to get the details like row count in that dataset, you can use data.count, and it will count is an action, so it will immediately execute that program, and all the variables that are built thus far will be compiled and executed when you issue action functions as part of your script in the command line. So now we will try to process the data. So if you want to parse the string, and if you want to get some information out of the string, we have to use either flatMap or map. FlatMap and map have they are different. I will show the difference in a moment. And as part of this, I am trying to get the word count program. To get the word count program, I have to read word count.txt file in HDFS. For that, I have created a simple file on my local file system on my VM, cat word count.txt. It has 3 lines, and each line has several words. And I have already copied this file by using Hadoop fs -put command. I can do it again by using -f. If the file exists, it will replace. So I want to copy word count to user Cloudera and hit enter. Now I can actually check by running ls command. And you can see the word count program here, word count file here. Okay, so now we will use this file to process. So in this case, I have to read word count.txt file, not the department's file. I have given the absolute path for the file instead of directory name because this user Cloudera has so many files in this. And now if I want to so now if you want to see the data, you can say data collect for each println and hit enter, and you can see that it has 3 lines, and it is showing you the data here. Now we have to get the word count, we have to break each line into separate words using space as delimiter. For that, we can use a function called flatMap. So I am creating a Spark variable or Scala Spark variable called data flatMap using val, which is immutable variable, equal to data dot flatMap is the function, and it takes a parameter, and this is called as, in this case we are using anonymous functions or closures. It is called closures in Scala. So you just have to give the name to the parameter. You don't need to create a function for this explicitly, but you can actually pass a parameter, and then you can actually invoke the functionality using this symbol equal to greater than, and then you can say rec.split, and so this is the parameter which we are using, and then we are actually processing that parameter as part of this code. And here I want to split the rec by space, and then close the bracket and hit enter. Now if I want to see what is there in data flatMap dot collect for each println. So collect will actually return it as a collection, and then for each will iterate through the collection, and in that we have println. So for each item will be printed from the collection by specifying this syntax for each println and hit enter. Now you can see that each line is broken into multiple words using space as delimiter. And now to get the word count, we need to create a tuple for each word with the key as the word itself and value as 1. For that, we have to use map function. So map function takes one line at a time, and you can do necessary processing and you can create tuples of it. So in this case, I can say val data map, another variable I am creating. On data flat map, I am applying the map function, and again I am using the parameter name as rec, and in this case I want to return key and value tuples. And the key is rec itself, which is each word, and then comma 1 and close the bracket and hit enter. Now you can actually say data map dot collect dot for each println and hit enter. Now you can see that for each word we got a tuple with the word as key and value as 1. And then to aggregate on this data, you can use aggregate functions such as reduceByKey. I will cover all the aggregate functions when we actually talk about aggregations as part of the syllabus. In this case, reduceByKey can be used to hold the key, and if there are duplicates for that key, you can group them and you can perform aggregations on them. For example, in this case, there is a word called how, which is repeated twice, and what reduceByKey will do is it will group into a tuple like this, how, and then it will create an array with ones using the values of these keys, and then using this you can actually add these things using reduceByKey. So you can issue data. I am creating a new variable, val data reduceByKey equal to data map. You can hit tab to autofill. I am not sure why it did not work. Sometimes it do not work. reduceByKey, and in this case you have to give an accumulator and a value. Value will be the value from the tuple, and accumulator I think it will start with 0 and it will add all the values in the array for that key moving forward. That means if there are 10 values for a given key, after the first iteration, accumulator will have 0 plus the first value, in this case 1. So accumulator will become 1, and then when it goes to the second value, moving forward, it will add the next value to the already updated accumulator, which is 1 in this case, and it will become 2. Like that, it will do the 10 iterations and the accumulator will be updated moving forward. So you have to create a tuple here. Sorry, yeah, value, and then you have to give equal to greater than symbol, and then you have to say accumulator plus value, and then for each collection moving forward, the value will be added to the increasing accumulator or aggregated accumulator up to that point, and then hit enter. Now you can actually view the results by issuing data reduceByKey, then collect, then for each println and hit enter. Where are the results? So you can see the results here. You can see how is 2, and most of them are only repeated once. So this is how you can actually run our simple word count program. So as part of this, we have covered three transformations. One is flatMap and map, which are used to pass the data and transform based upon delimiters, etc. And then we also seen the aggregation. And if you want to save the results, you can run this command and it will save it to there. Probably this directory might be already there. So first let me remove it from HDFS. And now I can run this command. Similar to sc.text file, you can actually apply save as text file on the collection, and it will save. It will save to HDFS. And I will cover dealing with files both to read and to read from HDFS and write to HDFS in a separate video. Now it is copied, and we can say ls to validate. You can see the file here, and then you can say cat on the file using patterns, like part star means all the files with part prefix will be displayed, will be catted, and now you can see the results, the same what we have seen in the Spark shell console. That being said, that is it for now. I hope you are enjoying the content on my channel. If you like this video, please click on the like button. If you want to provide the feedback, please use the comment section of the video. If you have any technical questions, please use the Stack Overflow and tag it appropriately using Apache Spark and Spark shell. I will try to answer the questions to the best of my knowledge. If you want to discuss on this, you can use my LinkedIn group. You can join. There are two groups. One is ITversity Hadoop Certifications, and the other one is ITversity Apache Spark. And if you have not subscribed to my channel yet, please do so. You will get to see a lot more content like this over time. Thank you.